let's talk a little bit about this game. So it's Notre Dame versus Ohio State for a national championship. Last Ohio State national championship was yours truly, your team in 2014. Notre Dame hasn't won one in a very, very long time. These two teams have given us some good games over the years, including last year. There was also, let's actually start with this. So the SEC is not in the national championship game. This is the second straight year no SEC participant in the national championship game. Chance for the Big Ten to win it 2 years in a row. And actually fascinating. Someone was looking this up in the press box about rivals winning it in back-to-back years, because Alabama and Auburn did this. There were some years with basketball where they were like basically Duke and Carolina recently were like a year off. But there have been years where they've won in back-to-back years. It's fascinating, right? That like we're potentially in a world where Michigan and Ohio State win national championships back-to-back years, and like the greatest rivalry in college football, as you and I believe.
I mean, there's also the rivalry between Michigan and Notre Dame too. Like, and they have not played the game in a while. They won't play it for a while. But
Michigan fans are a little conflicted with this national championship
I know they are.
matchup, for sure. So, but it is notable. We've talked about this, and we've talked about it during the postseason. The SEC did not have the same elite teams that other leagues did this year. They had the depth. They had a lot of upsets, but there is some evening of the playing field in this world in terms of talent, if that's NIL, if that's just the portal that guys can play right away. Some of the dudes that would maybe be on the bench at Alabama or Georgia are now elsewhere in the SEC. They could be elsewhere in the country. You mentioned Caleb Downs, one of the key players for Ohio State all season long, but certainly in the Cotton Bowl, came from Alabama. Like there's something that's happening, and maybe it's only a 2-year gap. Maybe we go back and the best teams in the country are in the SEC next year. They should have some of the best quarterbacks in the country next year. In Lenora Sellers, DJ Lagway, Garrett Nussmeier, those types of guys. But right now, this is a Midwest national championship matchup. It's a team in Notre Dame that is independent, that people had wondered, like, can you actually win at the highest level in this era of college football? When Brian Kelly left, and there's still a lot of people that are still furious the way that Brian Kelly left this program, he said in April 2022, a couple months after leaving Notre Dame for LSU, basically in the cover of darkness overnight, he said, I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship. So what you're saying is you can't do that at Notre Dame. You can't win a national championship in this day and age in college football at Notre Dame. Well, Brian Kelly has not taken LSU to the college football playoff since he's gotten there. And Notre Dame is one win away from a national championship under Marcus Freeman. So there's a lot of general storylines about these teams coming in, the lack of the SEC. And then you've got the Ryan Day factor here where, you and I were critical. I was very critical of Ryan Day after the Michigan game. I think we all said, barring a run to the national championship game, like, should Ohio State move on? Should Ryan Day be interested in moving on and going somewhere else where you don't have to live in this kind of magnifying glass that is Columbus when you can't beat your biggest rival? Well, here they are and get to the national championship game. That hot seat is not hot. It's been a remarkable coaching job from Ryan Day and everything that he has done over the last few weeks, the preparation, the execution, the way that he has been in games, pushing all the right buttons. Like, it has been a masterclass. And I think that is one of the lasting memories to me of this first team playoff is you had someone, the lowest of low of their career, 4 straight losses to Michigan, and they still had something to play for. And they unlocked something out of a team that we hadn't seen all season long. And here they are, they get a chance to play for a national championship. So no shortage of storylines here, but I do want to get your thoughts. Let's start with Ryan Day and what it means for him to bring this team 60 minutes away from a national championship. And yes, they will be favored to win it. I think a lot of people expect that they will win it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like, there was a lot of frustration that I felt as somebody who's a supporter of that program, obviously having played there, but like generally that fans felt about the way that Ohio State had looked against Michigan in particular. Like, take the rivalry out of it. That was a team that did not look nearly as competent as what we've seen in the postseason. And there was that question of why do they look like this? Why had there been slow starts? Like, why in that moment did they not just like look like a better team than what they looked like? And I think that's kind of the thing that people have bounced back and forth with. Like, the postseason run is one of the most enjoyable things to watch if you're an Ohio State fan, but there's that lingering, well, why did it look the way that it did at times? And so it's this very interesting thing. All of that to say, you check Twitter from a month ago versus right now, completely different field, completely different conversation. He's gotten people back in. It feels like there's been, he's just captivated the people of saying like, yeah, I'm all in on this thing, and I'm willing to forget about something that is typically very important to us. And that's one of the things I'll be curious about, is if they do pull this off, how many people get online and be like, rivalry game doesn't matter anymore. Congratulations, Michigan, get your little win. We got the trophy. That's what the 12-team playoff can do to the landscape of college football. But all of that to say, for somebody to be in that moment, and I cannot understand fully what that would feel like, but I could imagine what it would be like to be Ryan Day as a coach after your fourth loss in a row to Michigan, and to come back and clearly be the best team in the field is mind-boggling, right? So I think a lot of credit is due to him for rallying the troops and probably having some really difficult, honest conversations around that building, for, to your point, pressing all the right buttons. But I also look at the guys, Jack Sawyers of the world, Caleb Downs' first year in Columbus, the dudes who have taken ownership of that program this postseason as well, because I don't think this type of turnaround happens if guys aren't fully invested in it. It's remarkable. I think at some point somebody should write a book about exactly what happened in the time that the flag was attempted to be planted on that field, and Jack Sawyer did what he did up until whatever the outcome of this final game is. I want to know exactly how this thing came together the way that it did, because I've not seen anything quite like it.
No, it really is like kind of Disney story-esque, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is, the type of thing that you don't always see in real life. And again, huge credit to Ryan Day. Huge credit to Will Howard's played really,
Mm-hmm.
really well during this stretch. He's been really confident. Talked about how Jeremiah Smith, like, clearly Texas was like, he's not going to beat us. And then they figured out other ways to win and other ways to move the ball. So there's just a lot of adjustments that have happened since Michigan, and a lot of growth and a lot of development. And again, the buttons that have been pushed correctly, for sure. And Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles, all of them deserve a ton of credit, but the head man gets a lot of criticism, and he deserves a lot of praise for the 3 wins that have brought them to the
Agreed.
doorstep of a national championship. So let's talk a little bit about what this game maybe means. We
Can I
talked a
talk
little
about
bit.
Marcus for a sec
Yeah.
again? Just
Yeah.
real quick. Because the Brian Kelly comment, I think, was really interesting about resources. And I never felt like Notre Dame was a place that was under-resourced. I felt like one of the biggest hurdles for them was academic overlays and who you could actually admit to be a football player at that school. But the one thing that I do think happened is when the former coach makes a comment like that, I think athletic departments tend to get petty. And I think that they find every bit of alignment that maybe didn't exist before, and they put it in motion to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And I think by having a guy like Marcus Freeman, who is a younger dude, maybe a little bit more in tune with the way that things have to be done now versus the way that things were done before, was the right guy to help create that type of alignment in the new age of college football. He's been remarkable. Again, we've talked about just the path that he took to get here, but the idea that there was a coach that was there before, the one right before him, the guy who hired him, as a matter of fact, who said that they didn't have the environment, the resources to get the job done. And Marcus comes in right away, and in a few years, hello, they're going to be playing in a national championship. Like, that is remarkable to me as well.
Yeah, the fans certainly enjoy that. And I think you saw that every time LSU would lose a big game, every time Notre Dame would win a big game, they're linked. And people are tracking on that because he implied that you can't win a national championship at Notre Dame in this era of college football. And Marcus is trying to do that right now. It's also fascinating because he is going to have to, in order to do that, to win a national championship on Monday night, he's going to have to beat his alma mater and the place that he started his coaching career. I was talking to my buddy Jacob Hester, who I do radio with on SiriusXM, and he's an LSU guy. And the first thing he said, we were talking after Notre Dame won this game, was, I don't know how I would ever do that if I were coaching and I had to try to beat LSU to win a national championship. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know how I would even think about doing that. And that's an interesting dynamic here, because we've talked a lot about Marcus, his age, his role in college football. Like he's not just this rising coach. He's here. He's arrived. He's one of the faces of the sport. He could be the first Black coach to win a national championship. He's the first coach of Asian descent to get this far. I mean, like, he represents a lot to a lot of people. But the idea that to win a national championship, you got to beat your alma mater in the place that gave you the start of your coaching career is a totally different layer to all of this. And there's so much familiarity and there's so much respect in all of this. But that's a challenge. I just, you feel for him, because, like, in what world is that going to be the way that you're going to play for your first national championship, right? Like, of course, the odds are that.
Third shot at him too, right? Saw the season opener. I think it was 22 year, and then was it the fourth game of the year, and 23 in South Bend, which was crazy. I feel like when we do our preview, we should actually do the review of that game, because I feel like Ohio State stole a win there. There were so many opportunities for Notre Dame to actually win that football game. But, the alma mater thing, right? The third shot at it, but also you look at Ohio State. Brian Hartline is a former teammate of his. James Laurinaitis, who's coaching linebackers there, is a former teammate of his. Like, it's not just the idea of like, oh man, I'm coaching against my former team, but it's like those were his boys that he is going to try to attack and try to embarrass in this game on that football field. And there's so much that goes into it. So certainly a very unique spot, but I know my man is focused strictly on business when it comes to this game.
There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of great players on the field. One of these incredible stories and the ups and downs of a season will end with confetti and a national championship trophy. It's going to be a first-time head coach that wins a national championship. Like, there's so many storylines here. We will dive further into all of them, as well as the actual X's and O's and how we think these two teams are going to match up against each other. Cannot wait to dive into OSU offense against Notre Dame defense. We will do that later this week on Rushing the Field. So be sure to subscribe, set alerts for our feed, because we'll have plenty more coming your way and instant reaction from the national championship game as well.